Hello. Hey everybody, I'll be starting this webinar in about 3 minutes. I'll be starting this webinar in about 2 minutes. I'll be starting in 1 minute. Okay, and welcome to this presentation. I'm going to talk this evening. I'm going to keep on saying this evening, although it's actually morning for me because I'm in Northern Ireland. But welcome to this webinar. I'm going to talk about embracing the cloud to drive performance. And then my first realization is the cloud means everything to everybody. So this is about SaaS, this is about cloud applications. And I don't want to waste any more of your Friday evening if I've got that wrong. The case study that I'm talking about is the Office of National Statistics within the UK. My name's Debra Lilley, and I work for a company called Certus Solutions, and we have offices in Australia, but I'm actually based in the UK. I'm an Oracle ACE director, and I think this list just says that I've been around for a long time, and quite scarily, it's over 20 years since I did my first eBusiness Suite implementation at 941. So that's moved on quite a bit. But what I'm really proud of is that through the user group community, I've had the opportunity to work with Oracle development around their Fusion applications, or what we now today call the cloud SaaS applications. So that's my area of expertise. And I'm really pleased that Francisco invited me to give this presentation for this series, and I hope that you find this useful. So the presentation itself is taken from a project that we carried out last year in 2016, and it's based upon an article that I wrote as an interview with the project manager, Sarah Green, from the Office for National Statistics. Now, ONS, as we like to call them, are references for Oracle, and they've done a lot of presentations about why and the benefits of moving to cloud. But as a user group leader, I thought that we really wanted to take that story and talk about what that meant to the people who had previously supported eBusiness Suite and what it meant for them in the new world. There is a lot of concern that cloud will do away with people's jobs, whereas I see it as a way of giving people new skills and new value to their organization, rather than just keeping the lights on from old systems. So we're trying here to talk about what it meant to the team that looked after eBusiness Suite. The actual interview can be found in the UK OUG's Oracle Scene publication, and there is a link on here that you can use to get there. So when I talked to Sarah and said I'd like to do this presentation, she said, yeah, no problem. Would you like my slides? And I said, that would be great. Now, she had given this presentation at an event in London in February, and the first time I was giving it was in Norway. And she said, yeah, I'll send you my slides. And I hadn't been to her presentation, but I knew what she was going to say. After all, we'd done the interview together. So the night before, I got this enormous file from Sarah with the slides on it, and I downloaded it, and well, I don't know that it was a lot of help. So I'll share the slides with you and you can see what I mean. So this was her title slide. That was great. Why? A couple of points there. That's good. That's what we're going to cover. How to embrace it. That's great. Yeah. I am not sure what this means. Possibly don't bite off more than you can chew. Not sure. And then, yep. And then, yep again. And scary, perhaps. Yep, I like this. Powerful woman, that's great. Superman. And some conclusions. So actually, I didn't find Sarah's slides very helpful for me, because while I knew the content, it didn't flow for me. So actually, you're going to get some more boring slides from me as I go through this story. So who are the Office for National Statistics? Well, to me, they're the people who stop me as I go through the airport every week and say, can you just fill in this survey for me? I used to always ignore them. Now I feel I need to help them with their statistics because they're one of my customers. But actually, it's all around census data, inflation. Any time that you hear on the news statistics in the UK, they will have come from the Office for National Statistics. In the UK, public sector, of which ONS are part, is about 50% of Oracle's applications customers. And they were the first central government adoption of Oracle Cloud applications, so quite an important customer. The Office for National Statistics had done their latest implementation of eBusiness Suite in 2004, and they used all of financial modules, all the way down through to procurement and all of the HR modules, but they did not actually run their payroll from within eBusiness Suite. They use an external bureau. They were on release 11, so that was no longer in premium support, but because they didn't use payroll, it still worked, and it worked well. You know, it's a mature product, it did what they needed it to do, and it was fine. They have about 1,000 employees that are headquarter based, and then they have thousands of part-time field workers, so those survey people that I've just talked about. And in fact, during the census time, that can go up to many tens of thousands of people. And what they wanted to move to was to cloud financials and HCM, and that a slight change in their chart of accounts, purely to match what government was doing centrally. So their main reasons for doing this was the system was old, at risk of being out of support. That's really unsustainable, you know, lots of money just to keep it where it was. And then, you know, their business is data driven. They provide the official statistics for the country, and yet their corporate systems are old fashioned. How do you inspire people to come and work for you when you're going to tell them, you know, we're an organization that's all about data. We've got these wonderful tools to look at data, to drill into it, to make all of these wonderful statistical models. But by the way, our HR and finance system is out of the art. So this is, you know, the reasons why they were trying to do this. So they made the commitment to move to SaaS until in May 2015. So that's when they, you know, started their journey, but they didn't kick off the implementation until January of 2016. And they went live on the 31st of October. And this is a complete replacement of their eBusiness Suite. So they did that as a big bang. Quite often, organizations like to do a more phased approach, but for them, they wanted it to be a big bang. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. It was like for like. Basically, we were lifting from eBusiness Suite into the cloud. However, there were some things that changed slightly, so it's not a complete lift and shift. What's important is that they had the same outcome for every process that they did, but it might not have happened the same way. Cloud is more modern. It's based on best practices. It uses newer technology. So sometimes it doesn't do it the same way that eBusiness Suite did, but that's probably for the better. But no outcome was to be compromised. And the other thing that was very important to this project was the words, but we always did it that way, were banned. As long as we could do the same thing, have the same outcome, it didn't matter if that had to change slightly the way that it happened. Customizations. This is probably the biggest perceived barrier for moving from eBusiness Suite to the cloud, is the number of customizations that people have made over the years. So ONS had been on eBusiness Suite for 12 years, and yes, they did have quite a lot of customizations. Really, really importantly, and very refreshing for me, was that when I went into ONS to talk about customizations first, they knew what they had. And that's a very powerful position to be in. So we started looking at their customizations, and a good number of them were around managing the system technically. Alerts for table space, processing of statistics, monitoring, etc. They're not necessary. In the cloud, all of that's done by software that's running it and by cloud services. So that's not needed when you're using SaaS. Another significant proportion of their customizations were actually redundant in eBusiness Suite. They could have done them using standard functionality, but because they'd written them and people were happy with those customizations, they just left them. So that wasn't necessarily either. They had quite a lot of alerts where they were, looking out for things that had happened. And actually, there are different ways of doing that in SaaS as well. We have the watch list, which allows you to set up a kind of query for things that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a particular person who's raising invoices over a certain amount, which actually will flow through the approvals process in the normal way, but you just like to have that raised to your attention, you can just set up a tab within your watch list and it will do that for you. So again, not done in exactly the same way, but the outcome is the same. So those alerts are not necessary. We also found a number of customizations that have been written because ONS didn't trust eBusiness Suite. Or to be fairer, they didn't trust eBusiness Suite in 2014. They just wanted to check that things were happening in the background and they just left them there. However, 12 years later, they're very confident that the system is doing what they want, so they don't need those checks anymore. By far, the largest number of customizations was around physical reports. And actually, they don't really need physical reports today. Physical reports was when your data was latent, when you printed it off and then worked through a list. Today, that data is there and immediately accessible. So we tend to talk now more about analytics, about seeing the data, being able to drill into that data, being able to slice it all different ways. And all of that can be done within the system. Where you need data that's slightly different, you can create that using the wealth of analytic tools that you have within SaaS. So again, getting the data was still necessary, but how it was done was not. So that was mainly what happened around our customizations. There was very, very little that we couldn't immediately find an alternative for within cloud. And the quote here is that the flexibility of the cloud system had allowed us to deliver what we needed, so most of those customizations simply aren't needed. It's my first example there of Oracle customizations and our customizations is that S or Z in the spelling. But, global company, it can work. So why Certus? So why did ONS come to us? Well, I think, we do speak a lot in the user groups and they were well aware that we'd been doing this, and what they wanted from us and what worked really well was that it was a project team. This isn't about doing something to an organization. It must be a single project team. And that project team is far more than just the resources that are on the project. There are lots of stakeholders that are involved, and you will get challenges. It isn't a fixed product. You can't customize cloud, but there's an awful lot of configuration that you can do. So, you are going to come up against challenges. You're also getting 2 releases a year. That continuous innovation that the man or the woman that made the decision to buy cloud was so taken with, that you're always going to get new things, also means that you're also going to be coming up to things for the first time. And so these challenges do happen, but they need to be addressed together. It's not about blame. It's not about a witch hunt. It's about finding the way forward. Now, the approach that we take is that we prototype the system based on what we know about, in this case, the civil service. There's a lot of things that are similar, but also about what we understood from ONS when we talked to them in the very early days. So we build a prototype and then we mutually challenge the decisions. We show them what we've built, how it works, and then they say, yep, that's great. Yep, slight difference, but we have the same outcome. Or they'd say, no, that isn't really going to work for us. We need it to do more of A or more of B. And then we would challenge them. Why does that need to happen? And then when we're happy that it does, we will find a way to do it. And that meant that everybody was comfortable with the build as we went through the process. Interfaces, integrations. Within ONS, all of theirs were outbound. There was no data coming in. It was all going out. Because they had a big bang, it meant that they needed lots of contingency plans. The biggest, or probably the most important, not necessarily the biggest, but the most important is that payroll interface to their bureau. Nobody wants payroll to go wrong. It's incredibly high profile. You are never going to get your organization on board if the first thing that happens is they don't get paid or they get paid the wrong money. So that's very high profile. But their first payroll run was 3 weeks after they go live. So they were incredibly confident. It had been retested over and over again during UAT. But then once they went live, they tested it again with live data so that when the important day came, when they pressed that button, they were happy. Culture. I cannot tell you how important the culture is for going to cloud. It is not the same as on-premise. There are lots of things that are different and better. But if your organization hasn't bought into that culture, that will be your biggest barrier. So within ONS, everyone was committed to cloud. They had a support team of 4 that looked after what their users wanted, looked after first line support, wrote new reports for them, basically supported their e-business skills. And they had been worried about their role, their skills, even their jobs. But, they'd been promised by their organization that this was going to be an opportunity for them rather than for a challenge. And for them, their biggest change during the project was around moving from analytics to reports. And actually, for the end users, that's the same. I had another organization a couple of years ago who had a cost center report that was sent to every cost center manager every week. And that wasn't going to be a physical report in cloud. And they kept saying, but we need it to be. We need it to be. We've always had that. We'll always need that. And we were saying to them, but why? It's a static piece of paper. You can't drill into it. Why do you want it? Oh, no, it's comfortable. It's great. And we said, well, here's the navigation. Come into here, go into there, run the report. No. It's much easier to have a piece of paper on my desk. So what we actually did for them was we took away those 4 clicks to get to it, and we put it onto their welcome page so that the first thing they saw when they logged into their system was the piece of paper or the information that piece of paper had always given them the comfort for. And then with another click, they were able to drill straight into it. So that culture is incredibly important. For me as an implementer for our organization, this was a very different implementation. And the reason why was that ONS chose from day one to be incredibly public about what they were doing. I don't mind. In fact, I love customers that talk about a project from the beginning. I'm not always comfortable about waiting till it's live and it's been live for a month and then tell somebody history. I like people being open, but ONS were incredibly open. And what they said was they were public sector. It was public money. So they had a need, an obligation to be open as to how that money was being spent. But also they wanted to share the learning and the experience with other public sector bodies. They knew that they were first, and they wanted to make sure that those who went, after them did so even more efficiently and saved more of that public money. And then I love this as a user group leader. I love the fact that they then said that as active members of the UK Oracle user group, they had benefited in the past from other users sharing knowledge, and now that was their turn to share it. That's a fantastic quote, and one that I'm very proud of. Why did they go big bang? I've done a lot of projects where, people have chosen to be, and the reason for that was that they had an integrated finance and HR, their e-business suite, and they felt that if they were to phase it, they would have to be running two systems and unstitching the integration as they went along, and that would require a lot more work. So therefore, the beginning of January, that would only give them 3 months. They wanted to be very sure that their testing, especially around payroll, was very thorough. And actually, if we go live in the middle of the year, we'll have had several months to have bedded everything in before we get to our next year end and be even more confident. So that's what they did. So they went live at the end of October. That openness I talked about? Well, seriously, this is open. Who has an open day during user acceptance testing? Well, ONS did. They invited several other public sector organisations that were well down there thinking about cloud to come along and see them. So no pressure on us, no pressure on the team. And it went fine. It went really well. There was nothing to worry about, but that's openness. And another quote here from Sarah that I really love. Did we have challenges? Yes, of course we did. But as she explained at the steering boards, there were ice cubes to deal with, not icebergs. So we chipped away at those problems and solved them, and nothing stood in the way of them going live. From the users, what was the feedback from the users? Well, for them, probably the biggest change was the look and feel in a good way. They loved it. The system was intuitive, and the users say that once they understand the navigation, it's a simple training. They can understand what they need to do much better. I think the example that I use is that when I first started working with eBusiness Suite, it was a 4-day training course for procurement. Putting together and using the procurement module. But if I go to Amazon to buy a book, in fact, if I go to Amazon to buy anything, or if I go on to British Airways to buy a flight, nobody trains me what to do. It needs to be intuitive so that I can get to the end of my transaction and feel happy rather than frustrated or give up completely. And that's what our enterprise application should be like. And, people believe that, and it is. So the quote here is the user experience is very different, but in a good way, and people like using it. I'm a great advocate for user experience in Oracle Cloud, and have worked with the user experience team extensively. They have lab setups where they take wireframes of things that they're looking at based on extensive research as to what people want, and then they bring people in to try out these wireframes and give them feedback as to how it works. And that ensures that when they go live with something, that they're confident that the users are going to be happy with it. One of the big examples at ONS was the embedded analytics, and in the performance module, there is a very good example here. Their go live started with their midterm reviews in ONS. So they do reviews annually, but in the middle of the year, they will have a midterm review. In the past, what happened was managers had to go into HR and run a report to see how much of their team had completed their mid-time reviews. And now that as standard is available in the manager's dashboard. So in their dashboard, they can see what's been done and what has to be done. And they love having that immediate insight into their teams. The time that saves managers or allows managers to be more thorough or more effective with their management is something that is appreciated by everybody. So let's come back to that reporting versus analytics, probably the biggest change in the organisation. And they have a lot still to exploit here. The like-for-like approach meant that if the system didn't have analytics that covered a report, in the first instance, what was delivered was an analytical report that that gave them what they needed. So they would write a BI publisher report or an OBIA report to replace the physical reports that they had within eBusiness Suite. However, there is more to do with that now. They can turn these into dashboards, etc. And for ONS, as I said at the very beginning, this is really important because their business is data. They encourage their staff to be curious about statistical data, and now they can apply that same curiosity to their corporate data. What are we spending our money on in expenses? Is there a reason why this is more expensive in this part of the organisation than in another? You know, all of those questions where they can now explore that they couldn't do before because it was all about running a report and writing a report to do it. And that support team, how do they feel? You know, they were worried on day one, what's it going to mean to our job? What's going to happen to us? Well, they're actually really excited. They can be proactive. They're talking about taking specific reports and adding them to dashboards again. You know, this glance, scan, commit ability that you have within cloud, a high-level dashboard that just gives you a dial or a pie chart or whatever to visualize something. Scan that, go into a little bit more information, and where necessary, go into the detail. There are so many more things that they can bring into that for their organisation. So, for instance, within the public sector, there's a concept of temporary promotion. Somebody has been promoted for a period of time, that needs to be reviewed. When's it going to be expired? Does it need to be extended? Does it need to be made official? All of that information, again, a number of reports. So they've turned that into a dashboard, scanning into an infolet that drills down to the detail. Instant information for their managers. People love it. The support team are being proactive and they're adding value to the business. They're no longer just keeping it running. And the analogy that we used here was they felt that they were a runner on a treadmill. Lots and lots of effort, but not particularly exciting and not going anywhere. But now they're running free with these endless opportunities of how they can improve the system. So what about go live, Dave? What about the end of October when we were all ready to press that big button and see, you know, start using the new system? So Sarah, as a project manager, she was tired. You know, there's a lot of data to cut over that weekend. And she was very nervous, but excited, confident that it would happen. But as a project manager, she was in control of everything until that final switchover. So they had their big bang, they pressed the button, but actually nothing happens all at once. The system's there, you've got it, you can start using it. But when do you say we're live? Is it your first payment run? You know, is it the first electronic payment that goes to a supplier? Is it your first GL posting? You know, when you started to actually commit those transactions into your system? Is it that first payroll extract? I know that's probably the one you're most nervous about. Or is it that first month end when you can say, we have closed the period, everything is done as expected? So, it's not a single, although it's a big bang, there are a number of, milestones that all contribute to that go live. So that happened at the end of October. And, it's running fine. We're now, I'm doing this in July. So, we're well into that first year. So what are they doing? So a lot of that proactivity that I've talked about. And, they're starting their phase 2. So their e-business suite supported the 1,000 staff that they had in their offices. They are live and have been using cloud since last October. But their field force, which is many more people, have never had access to e-business suite. And that's a cultural divide, just simple HR self-service. So that is being rolled out. They're also adding EPM. So they're also using or starting their project for enterprise planning and budgeting and workforce planning. They're looking to enhance their payroll processes. At the moment, there's an awful lot of manual work that's being done in Lotus Notes, standard functionality in Cloud HCM. So it might be easier for them to do that in their system, and they're looking at how they move that over. And there is also some other things that they do around their payroll, which isn't standard functionality, and they're looking at how can they modernize that. And one of the things that we're investigating is the use of PaaS, specifically around Application Cloud Builder. There's some amazing things that we can do to extend their self-service HR. And I've got another webcast coming up. I'm not sure what the date is, but there's another webcast where I'll be looking at how you can use Cloud Builder, Application Builder in the cloud to extend that self-service HR. Some really exciting things that we can do there. And again, it's all about improving their business from a single source of data. So lots of things happening there. I suppose the final word from Sarah here was that this has been and continues to be a challenging journey, but they're up for it and they're really excited about those possibilities. So that was my presentation. I really do want to say thank you to Francisco and to the Asia Pac user group community for this opportunity to speak to you. I guess you can tell just by listening to me, I'm really enthusiastic about what it is that we do at Certus. I'm really enthusiastic about the cloud applications. I very famously said, well, a couple of years before it went live, I famously said that Oracle had managed to make the GL sexy. And Steve Miranda, who's responsible for the whole of cloud, said, Debra, I want to talk to you about your definition of sexy. And I think it was just little things. There's the ability to see your data in all sorts of ways. For instance, when you're closing your books in General Ledger, you might close them and find that something's not quite right. And then you need to open them up again and do an adjusting journal. And then you go through the close again. And then you think, oh, I put the sign the wrong way on my journal, or, oh, my maths was out by 5 pence. I have to go back in and do it all again. Well, you can look ahead. You can have a look and see what the impact of a journal is going to have on your accounts before you commit the transaction. And to me, that's sexy. To me, that's making the using of the system fun, efficient, and, just something that we like to do. It is intuitive. God, I sound like an Oracle salesman. I love the product. And I love working with people to get them there. And, I'm happy to talk to anybody who would like to understand more. I have details on here to get hold of me, or I've got colleagues in Australia, reach out and be happy to help. And thank you very much, Francisco, for this. I can't see any questions, but if you don't have questions or you don't want to ask them out loud, then just use the email or go out to Francisco, and I'm sure we'll be able to get back to you. And, you know, what do I talk about next? I am going to talk about extending using ABCS, but if there's something else that you'd like me to drill into, again, let Francisco know. I'd be happy to help. So I think with no questions, that's probably it. And it is Friday evening for you. So thank you again for listening, and look forward to next time.